Thank you to all for watching the magazine, but a special thank you to all who appeared on our program. We met some amazing women and men small business owners, musicians, artists, authors, celebrities, all within our community. We were also blessed to win the Hometown Media Award for 2023, giving the magazine national recognition. We look forward to 2024, when we will continue to bring you the best that our community has to offer. So please sit back and enjoy some of the highlights of this past year's programming.
I was in there for about 2 years. I was really quickly outgrowing it. I started looking for spaces, couldn't find anything. Lo and behold, out of nowhere, Brian, the owner of the pharmacy, who I have done sneaker deals with, reached out to me. And he was like, you know, I have this spot. I'd be interested in putting your business into it. So I came and I looked at it. He told me what he could make it into, and I seen it, and I was like, you know what, all right, it's time to move on. So we moved over here to Fairhaven to a bigger location. And now I have way more space, and that move really changed my life, honestly.
Okay.
This is my hometown, obviously. This is where I grew up, so it was great being here, but the grand opening was insane. I had over 200 sales that day. I had hundreds of people come up. My post got shared 600 times, actually, and almost 100,000 people seen the post. And that day was just crazy for me.
And I always knew that when I opened my business had to give back to the community.
Okay.
When you own a business that you don't sell anything online at all whatsoever, your local community is who supports you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was essential to me to be able to support my local community back. I've always loved dogs. It breaks my heart, the situation of animals in shelters. It also breaks my heart that none of them have enough money. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when you ask somebody who works in a shelter or runs in a shelter, like, what is it you need the most of? The answer is money. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of hit me like a lightning bolt one day. The two ideas came together, and it was like, we are going to give back to Acushnet's local shelter. And then the rest just kind of snowballed into place from there.
That's great. Well, welcome to Fairhaven and,
Thank you.
and everything. Okay. And I'm sure that people love coming in and seeing the display of the records.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they like flipping through the records and checking out the artwork, the liner notes, things you can't really do on CDs, you know, because the liner notes are so small. People enjoy grabbing the record and putting the record on the turntable. It's an experience. It's I always tell people it's like fast food is great. It's convenient. It's easy. It's there when you want it. It's like an MP3 or streaming services. But a record is like fine dining. You have to have the time. You have to have the attention required. You have to put on the record. You have to remove the record, flip the record, things like that. But the experience you get from it is much better than you would on a stream.
I find it's important. You look back at photographs, and there's a history there, there's an emotion there, and there's a great deal of things that people will hold dear in the future. That's pretty much what we're looking for. You know, if you can look at our work, and there's some emotion that comes from your looking at our work,
Okay.
we're doing the right thing then.
Sure. You've had some of those emotional kind of draws with your photography. Can you describe one of them?
Well,
or many.
yeah, many. Well, one in particular was an early image of a harbor. It's going to slip my mind now. Quissit Harbor, and it came out really, really nice. And you never know with photography; it has to strike the viewer. And so as far as sales and things of that nature, but this one woman stopped by and paid me a pretty substantial amount of money to get started, and it was where they used to tie their boat up.
Oh, okay.
So there was a connection with this, because Quissit's a beautiful harbor anyway, and that's usually the connection. So talking with folks and find out what they do, what's their favorite hobby, and we kind of incorporate those kinds of things into the shoot.
Okay, all right. So it makes it very personal.
Yeah, try to.
After all, I am the son of a father singer, so painting all this misery has actually made me happier.
Happier. Interesting.
Paula, my wife, would say when I was doing abstract work that I was, it's like, why, you're never happy about anything that you do. You're always like, because to me it was a very serious thing. It was like, it was very intellectual. Abstract art is not just throwing paint on a canvas. There's so much more to it. It's about composition and such. And the ultimate goal of the abstract artist is insane. It's to paint nothing, that's why you keep doing it. It's like looking for Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So I was always trying to figure out ways of getting around that. And I ended up going off in this little foray based on a painting, an old painting I did back in the 80s of the Arctic whaling disaster. Yeah. And she's like, see? The weird thing is that I'd never gotten the kind of reaction from my work before.
But I do a lot of drone work. I am a licensed drone pilot. I was actually the first licensed drone pilot at Channel 7 when it was NBC.
Okay.
Back in 2016.
So what does it entail to be a drone pilot?
If you want to do it commercially, you have to have a federal license. It's a chapter, I think it's called Part 107. And for me, the way I got started, I had this simple drone with a GoPro attached to it.
Okay. And
nowadays, I got like a fleet of drones that are so much more advanced. But typically, for example, yesterday I did a shoot for a realtor who wanted to advertise a piece of land that's already engineered for a developer, somebody that can come in, build a couple of houses, and there's no other way to really showcase that work. I mean, that opportunity, I should say. Without the drone, it's almost impossible, right? Because you come in on the ground and you're just going to look at a bunch of trees.
So you see, I'm wearing the Boston shirt, of course, for an upcoming event that we're going to be having in just a few days.
16.
So tell us more about that, the Boston Marathon.
My 12th one. So I'm very excited. It's always a great day. Being on the course, there are spectators the entire 26 miles. And they're not just spectators like one row deep. They're rows deep. And the further you get along the course, there's so many more people that are out there for you, which is great because it pulls you through, especially when you're not feeling it in that last 6 miles. But everybody brings you along. The noise, the energy, all the runners that are out there, you're never alone. And it's just an amazing experience to be out there and complete it. So very excited.
It's how Gifts to Give came about.
I wanted to build a model that touched 6 touch points, never to have a payroll. Mm-hmm. We're 15 years in and we've never had a payroll. We run the business with boomers. 10,000 Americans are turning 65 every day for, I think, the next 12 years. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of that aging out. And I think we're the only industrial country in the world that farms off our old people. Mm-hmm. We've got millions of Americans who have managed their money, have managed their health. They're at the pinnacle of their skill set. How much golf can you play? How much bridge can you play? So I wanted a model that could leverage the institutional knowledge of boomers. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be able to attract tens of thousands of kids. If we have a customer at Gifts to Give, it's a student doing volunteer service. Our mission is to connect children to giving and service. And for the last 14 years, 1,000 kids a month come here and volunteer.
Wow.
250 kids a week. And about 100 adults a week, so 5,000 volunteers, adult volunteers, 12,000 kids. The community drops off about 25,000 pounds a week of donations.
Wow.
And again, I said, I don't think we have a 10% brand recognition, so it's kind of interesting. There's that much stuff out there.
That's great. So what do you do locally here right now?
So in terms of the paranormal, I am somebody who, I look at myself as a researcher and a disseminator of information when it comes to the paranormal. Other people will call themselves paranormal investigators. I go out and do investigations, but it's not what I do all the time. I'm more somebody that would rather talk to the investigators and learn from them and then be able to kind of pass on that knowledge to others. So I look at that as kind of my job. I'm almost like a documentarian using radio and podcasting as my media.
What drew you to this?
It really, so all the things that happened to me over the course of my life growing up, they were never really profound enough for me to say, I need to dive into this full steam. It was when I was a teenager and my aunt and uncle owned a haunted house in the Bridgewater Triangle. And I was staying over their house, and there was a night when it was just myself and my cousins, and my other aunt was babysitting us, and we heard this slam, slam, slam going on. And through the course of checking it out, it finally got to the point where we were watching these bulkhead doors to the basement just slamming up and down when there was no wind.
Wow.
And that's when I looked at my cousin, and he said to me, he's like, yeah, my house is haunted. And so the experiences that I had there really pushed me toward looking into it more. But it wasn't until in 2004 when the TV show Ghost Hunters came on television that I realized, oh, people are actually out there doing this all the time. And so then I started really looking into it more as a hobby more than anything. And then in 2006, I got the chance to create the Spooky South Coast radio show, and then it just took off from there.
What's one thing that you want the public to know about the Father's Day Road Race in Fairhaven?
One thing that we thought about, or tradition. I guess that's probably the one thing I'd say, because like what it means to my family, like I said, I can't be the only family. I know I'm not. So this tradition, I want it to be around forever. I want to run this with my grandkids someday. So I would say that's the one thing that really jumps out to me. It's a fun race. It's, everybody gets together, and at the end of the race, there's, we have 50 dozen donuts and pizzas and smoothies, and everybody's just hanging out and hugging. You see people you haven't seen in a lot of years. So it's tradition. It's really community, which we're blessed to live in this really great town. So I would say those two things, community and tradition, two things.
So did Father's Day Road Race always start at Hastings Middle School?
No, the first one actually started in the center of town, right on Center Street.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because you would start it right in front of the library, run toward Main Street, and then you had a right angle turn going left. So with a lot of runners, it gets a little hairy there.
And you're always positioning yourself to make that first turn so you don't get into trouble.
Yeah.
And was it always in the morning?
No, the original one I think was I want to say 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And the reason being was because of all the churches in the center of town.
Okay.
I was concerned about church traffic and that. So it was always at night. And then I think people used to say, well, we have to postpone our Father's Day activities, cookouts and all that, so they could run the race.
Oh, I see.
So then eventually, it got moved to the morning.
Yeah, and it's not always been in the center. It moved to the high school and then finally to Hastings, where it is today.
Yeah.
That's great. What's the mission?
Our basic mission is that we support the students and the faculty and the administration of the high school. And originally, Mary's idea of our mission revolved around historical renovation. She was very concerned that the town might not be taking care of Henry Huddleston Rogers School the way she thought it should happen. And so, for example, those that are familiar with the school, Room 7, the most beautiful classroom in the school, which still has the wooden desk, the 102 wooden desks. We restored that. When I say we, the Alumni Association, back in the mid-'80s, totally restored that room, the ceiling, the walls, the floors, had all the desks taken out and refinished. So that was our first big project. And then the Knipe Auditorium upstairs.
Okay.
The beautiful auditorium with hand-carved gargoyles in the ceiling. We restored that room about 3 or 4 years later in the late 80s. So those are the type of projects that originally got us going.
So, John, can you tell us some of the history of Our Lady's Haven?
Sure. Our Lady's Haven at one time was actually a hotel. It was a hotel we're not far from Main Street. It was a hotel in this old district, I guess you want to say it. Then it was purchased by the Diocese of Fall River. We are one of 5 nursing homes that the Diocese of Fall River owns. It's us, Marion Manor, which is in Taunton, Catholic Memorial Home, which is in Fall River, Sacred Heart, which is in New Bedford, and Madonna Manor, which is in Attleboro. So it was purchased by them, and the diocese oversees the 5 facilities. So, yeah. It's a great old building, as I keep saying. It's beautiful.
The structures are wonderful. You know, when we have the main dining room here, we do have the family lounge. You know, and they don't make stuff like that anymore.
Right. They sure don't.
So I've been pretty much in print journalism all the time. I've done a little bit of cable TV at Boston Neighborhood News when I was in school. Mm-hmm. I've done some freelancing doing research for Life magazine for a while. But it's mostly been newspapers, mostly been either a reporter, columnist, or an editor. Sometimes people don't quite get the distinction between a columnist and a reporter. A columnist is allowed to give their opinion. It's a perspective. A reporter, it's just the facts.
That's one thing about my food too as well. And I like people to understand this. We don't parboil anything here at Cobb Southern Barbecue. Everything is raw. Because I'm a butcher and that's how it's done.
Okay.
So you don't get chicken boiled first. You don't get ribs that are boiled first. And I hear this a lot, people coming to me. Do your ribs fall off the bone? No, they do not. Because ribs are not supposed to fall off the bone. You're supposed to get a clean bite. And a clean bite is when you bite to that bone, that meat comes off without no tearing or tugging. It's a nice, easy bite. That's the kind of ribs you get at Cobb Southern Barbecue. You get a clean bite. I don't cook with sauce. You get sauce on if you want it afterwards. Sauce is meant to complement the meat, not overpower it. And no offense to you people up north, but you guys don't seem to understand that. You want everything doused in sauce. No. I give you less sauce because I want you to taste the meat. I want you to taste what I'm cooking. Because what I'm cooking is worth for you to taste. So I don't drown it in sauce. I try my best not to. But sometimes my hands get a little heavy when I'm rushing. It may happen, but usually that doesn't happen.
Our next activity is going to be very shortly, the Monday of Labor Day, during the celebration of Our Lady of Angels, during the procession. For the first time, the Lagoa Friendship Pack Committee is going to take part in the procession, and I am here to invite everybody that not only hails from Lagoa, but for all of St. Michael, to take part in the celebration with us, even the descendants, the second and third generations, to walk with us as a matter of paying honor to the immigrants that so long ago settled here and adopted Fairhaven as their home, or the South Coast.
Tell us something about Four Paws Up. What is Four Paws Up all about?
So it's a dog bakery. We have gourmet dog treats. We have like just regular, our cookie jar bar in case dogs can't have anything with yogurts. We have our clothing. Fall, winter is coming up, so we're going to be switching over our clothing from the spring, summer to fall, winter. So just pretty much a spot where your dog can kind of come in, and just like how we go shopping in a regular store for us.
Sure. Oh, awesome. And what about the ice cream shop? What is that all about?
So like I mentioned before, it was arts and crafts. So we saw that it wasn't going because of COVID. And then my mom was like, well, we live next to a park. We don't really have an ice cream spot close by right here next to the park. So why not open one? So it's been pretty good. We have a lot of people coming from the park that enjoy some ice cream. They go back, play some basketball. So it's a good little spot where North Fairhaven can have, where you don't have to go too far and leave Fairhaven.
But so we were working on our calendar to figure out what type of events and where we can add visibility and help residents of the town out. And when we did that, we had seen that there was a Disability Pride Month during the month of July last summer. And we had talked last year about, you know, maybe we should do something here because people with disability is obviously is, you know, birth and beyond. As our citizens are aging in the town, we're going to see more people that do have some physical handicaps as far as getting into our buildings, access to certain services. So taking on a Disability Pride event is really going to help bring awareness to more members of the town as far as who needs support in what areas. And it, you know, our children in schools, the high need students in schools rate is going up. So, you know, having those extra services there are also going to cost more money. And I want people to see how valuable inclusion is for the town and how much that will give us, you know, back in having a more, you know, visible, united front as far as thinking about all our citizens. So we had done a food drive earlier this year, and that's actually when I was like, oh, hey, like, we'd like to do a Disability Pride event, but I'm not really sure how to go about it. And Tracy's been fantastic helping us with that.
So you were in a documentary, American Scream.
Yep, American
I love
Scream.
it. So tell us about that. Tell us about that.
So we entered that contest, and like I said, those people showed up and they liked what they saw, and they asked if I wanted to be in it. It was done through NBC Universal for Chiller TV, and they were looking for families across New England.
Okay.
And they picked myself, Victor Barreto. He lived on Castle Avenue, and then it was the Broders who lived on Fort Street. And they says that they had other people they went out towards near Boston. They went out near Worcester, Springfield. The director of the movie insisted that it be these three families because everything was so close knit.
Nice.
And whereas for Haven, at that time I was doing a haunted yard map for the neighborhood news. And we had so many haunts in town, so they wanted to be involved with all of that. Right. So anyway, we went, they started coming in. They filmed here for about a month. And it was constant, in my face. And every time I put something together, fix something, or just basically I get out of work, come home, and I'll be out there 3, 4, 5 hours, and they'd be here on the weekends. It's all day, all night. And it went on and on and on.
And then when the whole division went to Vietnam, I became a combat reporter.
Okay.
And what I had to do then was I'd go out with on missions. I'd go with the people. I'd be in battles all the time, and I would follow it and write what I saw. And then they would fly me out by helicopter back to base, and I would give it to people from the AP and stuff who wouldn't go into battle.
Okay.
I'd give them the information, and they would appear. And they used to fry me a little bit when I'd see my story into their bylines, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I got really into it, and one of the benefits of that was I got to escort dignitaries around when I was in. They'd send me out for 10 days, and then I would be back for a week or a week and a half. Then I would escort dignitaries. So I got to see the Bob Hope show, and I interviewed Ann Margaret, and I interviewed Hugh O'Brien, Charlie McCarthy, and Edgar Bird. And I had and I did a lot of writing, a lot of features. So I really liked that. And at the same time, I kept in contact with the people at the Standard Times. The sports editor was Don Harrington at the time. And I had about 2 weeks to go before I was coming home, and I got a letter from Don Harrington that said there's a spot open up in the sports department. Oh, wow. If you'd like to come in for an interview. And I said, beautiful timing, because I had nothing to go home to in the field. So I took the interview, and they hired me full-time on the spot, and that's when I started in June of 1966.
Nobody knows this yet, and so I'm going to have to think of how to word it. Sure. But the Phil Show Now is going to be my handle.
Okay, the Phil Show.
Now, the Phil Show Now.
The Phil Show Now. Oh, even better.
It'll be on every platform. You know more about this than I do. The Facebook Live, all of the, platforms like YouTube,
Sure.
Spotify, everything. All right. But there's one difference. The Phil Show Now is going to be done live from our own The Phil Show Now studios.
Okay.
That are going into downtown New Bedford, where you can look through the window and see the show produced.
Oh, that is excellent, Phil.
All right.
I have had variations of the group through the 10 years, going on 11 now. And currently with Ruben Pacheco, who I met through another bandmate. He plays with Gary Brown too sometimes. But he's my duet partner, and I'm very happy that we're out there doing what we love to do.
And you've had, like you said, several variations of the
Yes.
band True.
Yes.
Truue.
Well, Ruben's the other U in True, because that was my sister, was the other U in True. And she came up with the name. I didn't expect it, because I was like, oh, wow. At first I was kind of thinking about what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to be true to the music.
Nice. Very nice.
So that's, and I just wanted to keep the name because of her. It's like a memorial to her almost, like, and just everyone knows the name now too. So that's the other thing. Once you get established,
right,
it's hard to get away from that too. You just want to kind of stick with what works.
So how did Fairhaven Unified Sports come about?
So about 5 years ago, Chris Garrick, who was our athletic director at the time, came to us, and he had said, oh, I have this idea. I'd love to run by you guys. He said other schools in the town, not in the town, other schools in the state are participating in unified sports. What do you guys think? And her and I immediately were like,
yes,
absolutely.
yes, yes.
So I'm going to admit I'm not very athletic, but just the idea of the kids being able to participate, because our number one goal is I want my students to have the same exact opportunities as every other kid in this building has.
Yes.
And this was going to give them that opportunity. So we started basketball 5 years ago.
Yep.
Okay.
And we started track 3 years ago.
Yep.
So, and then we actually do strength and conditioning in the winter, and this will be our
I was going to say, is
third
it
year
third year
of
doing
that.
it.
So we actually do things for 3 seasons. The strength and conditioning is done during the school day, and then you submit everything to SOMA, so it's not seen in the public, but it's really helped our kids, because a lot of the athletes do weight training.
Okay.
So our kids do the strength and conditioning.
They do it in class. So the first year that we started this, we had the students, that we knew were like, okay, they're going to take part in the basketball. And then I kind of hand selected the mentors who are on the court with them.
Okay.
And because I teach regular ed for the most part, I'm almost like I'm very select I'm very picky of who I choose, because I know which kids are doing it for the right reasons, and I see their heart and why they're doing, why they would want to choose this. And I think our first year, we knocked it out of the park with like the kids that did it. Some of them are still in touch with those kids, and some have graduated and they've moved on and they're still in touch with them. We're still in touch with a few of those kids too. One came back for one of our recent games, and he was like, oh my God, this is great. I remember this. And that's what it's about.